Downtown Bristol is about as close to Main Street, USA as you'll ever get. And for 2 centuries, Linden Place has been the centerpiece of grandeur and history in the heart of Hope Street. But it is the building on a side street adjacent to Linden Place that is beginning to draw Bristolians and out-of-town visitors alike. 3 years ago, the Bristol Art Museum got its own permanent space from Linden Place and is gradually growing it into more than a museum.
I think our interest now is not so much exhibits, but reaching out to the community.
Janice Antonucci grew up in Bristol, returns here every summer, and is an artist herself. And she sits on the museum's board of directors.
This is called the Bristol Art Museum. I wanted to see it become something larger than that, and we're becoming now more of a cultural art center.
For 50 years, the museum borrowed the ballroom next door to the main Linden Place building to host art exhibits.
It was established as a museum, but they only really used it from May through October, and they had exhibits from spring to fall.
Patricia Woods, whose father helped found the museum in 1963, is also on the board. She and her husband came back to Bristol full-time in 2007, after years of living in New York. In 2008, the museum got an opportunity to take over the old barn behind Linden Place that had largely been used for storage and housed the Linden Place staff back in the day. The first phase of renovations began in 2011, and the gallery opened in late 2013.
Our vision at the time was to definitely keep this building, which is really lovely, keep all the architectural features of it, but then at the same time try to make the museum come alive and offer a more contemporary look.
John Lusk, who has offices in Bristol and New York, was the project architect and provided us an assortment of before and after pictures of the renovation. Those who saw the before have an appreciation for what the museum has evolved into. A main gallery where rotating exhibits are on display, including one we saw last spring called The Joy of Art. A key to the building's renovation was getting permission to break through the wall on Wardwell Street and create a main entrance that now has a mahogany door leading right into the first floor gallery.
More darks and lights that are apparent so that your painting will pop.
Upstairs we find Mary Ellen Dwyer teaching a 6-week watercolor class in a newly created multi-purpose room.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
On another day, a group is reading passages from Shakespeare. Across the hall, artist Joanne Merman is renting her own studio to paint and teach art lessons.
And so I saw the barn when it was just raw space, thought it was a very difficult job to do in 2008, and they did it. And so I was first on the list to get a space.
Merman moved to Bristol 8 years ago, in part because she's a sailor, but also for the arts community, not only in Bristol, but Rhode Island as a whole.
It's a very wonderful state that is supportive of the arts, and I think embraces the arts more so than where I lived in Massachusetts and I was in the Boston area.
She notes that Rhode Island does not tax the sale of artwork, and she can get studio space for a reasonable price.
What is it that's attractive to you when you work there?
I think to an artist it has to be, number one, location. If your studio is close, you will use it. You will go and paint because it's close. So I live in Bristol, so I can walk here in 10 minutes. I like being downtown. I find it has a nice little energy in terms of the kind of hamlet that it is.
The museum holds a periodic art al fresco on the fence outside, giving greater public visibility to various artists' works. And the museum has rotating exhibits at the public library across the street, another way to try and increase visibility in the community.
Moving it into this building, changing this facility and updating it, created its own authenticity. it made it really its own place. This is the Bristol Art Museum. And now it's getting to be known that way. It's on a side street, so again, each year I think more and more people are being exposed to the fact that we're back here. But I think people, it was really dead storage. It was dead storage for many, many decades. And to change it into a light white space filled with beautiful objects and a lot of traffic and activity completely animates the place.
I think a lot of times people see an art museum and they think, oh, that's for them.
Yes, that's why I want the cultural center added on to it. Sometimes the connotation museum means it's a little standoffish.
The museum recently got a grant to bring veterans in for a photo shoot. Photographer Arthur Rainville did 7 separate shoots, asking each of the participants to recall his or her best day and worst day in the military. And at the end, to salute. The finished montage of each is a powerful collection of history, past and present.
The evolution has pretty much been the fact that we have a much larger space. We can offer maybe a wider range of art than we had before, because that room, when we had it in that room, we had to have one room, and then we had to put up a lot of petitions to hang. So this space is so much better.
When you walk in on an opening night, what's that like for you?
It's very exciting. Very exciting, because the artists, of course, are here, and they're all beyond excited, because it's obviously their opportunity to be able to hear what people say about their work and and want to explain, and you have an opportunity to speak with the artist.
The way I think of this museum is it's small. The space is small, 4,000 square feet, but it has large ambitions. My vision for the next few years, short-term, long-term, is that finally we're in a position where we can offer art classes, programs. I'm more interested, I'm not an artist, I'm more interested in having quality programs that are art-related and touch maybe more on the humanities. Linden Place is considered the crown jewel, so to speak, of the town of Bristol. It's right on Main Street, and it's beautiful. You see it at night, it's great. But we like to think that we're the invisible gem.
A gem that's gaining visibility with a place to now call its own. In Bristol, Jim Hummel for the Rhode Island Spotlight.